She thought she was making a statement. A passive-aggressive stroke of gray paint across what she called those ugly rooftop blemishes. HOA beautification, she said. Just a little correction. A silent protest to preserve the aesthetic of our traditional community values. But what she didn't know, those solar panels weren't just feeding my fridge and running my AC. They were powering every streetlight on our block. That's right, the lampposts, the corner security lights, even the fancy decorative uplights the HOA bragged about in their brochures, all routed through the system on my roof. And the moment her little art project finished, the entire street went black. No warning. No flique. Just gone. People stepped outside, confused. Porch lights stayed on, but sidewalks vanished in shadow. Kids turned their bikes around. Delivery drivers missed addresses. And by 10 p.m., the local Facebook group was on fire with questions. But I already knew the answer. I saw the paint. I found the note she left, taped smugly to my mailbox. Just doing what your HOA wouldn't. What she didn't realize was she hadn't just blacked out the street. She'd flipped the switch on herself. If one entitled neighbor can sabotage solar panels because they don't match the roof color, what's next? A garden that's too green? A mailbox that reflects too much sunlight? This wasn't about paint. It was about power and the illusion of control that comes when someone thinks rules don't apply to them. I didn't just lose electricity that night. My neighbors lost safety, the kind that comes from a lit path home. They lost reliability, trusting that the lights would come on, the sidewalks would be safe, the corners would be clear. And worst of all, they lost faith in the systems built to protect them, to modernize their lives, to run quietly and cleanly without drama. But if Karen thought she could outpower the grid, if she thought a single stroke of paint could undo years of careful wiring, technical oversight, and community partnership, she clearly forgot one thing. I'm the one who wired it. And if she wanted darkness, then darkness is exactly what she was going to get. Until the lesson burned bright enough to leave its mark, IT started with an idea. Not for me, but for everyone. I've been an engineer for nearly 15 years. Renewable systems, off-grid tech, solar efficiency. The stuff people roll their eyes at until their electric bill doubles. I've done field installs on desert schools and built microgrids for disaster zones. So when we moved into this neighborhood, tucked into a tidy HOA-run suburb with curved streets and cookie-cutter roofs, I had one goal. Make it better. Quietly. Efficiently. That's why I installed the panels. Not just for myself, but to donate excess power into the grid, specifically to power the streetlights that line the 3 roads surrounding our development. You see, the HOA had been struggling with an outdated lighting system. High-maintenance halogens, endless bulb replacements, and rising costs. A few sections of the neighborhood went dark for days at a time when the budget ran dry. So I offered a solution. I'd handle the cost. I'd handle the routing. I'd connect the lights to a small but efficient solar grid installed on my own roof, fed through a backup battery and inverter, with full code compliance and isolation from the main residential circuits. The board was reluctant. Karen, was vocal. I'm not saying solar's bad, she said during the meeting, adjusting her reading glasses while flipping through the proposal I printed on recycled stock, but it's not exactly pleasant to look at, especially on a roof so close to the main drive. I replied calmly. They're matte black, flush-mounted. You can't even see them from the street unless you're looking for them. She shrugged. But still, aesthetics matter. It sets a tone. I almost laughed. A tone? This woman had 3 flamingos on her lawn and a seasonal flag that changed every 4 days. But I held my tongue. Eventually, the board voted yes, 4-1. Karen was the lone dissenter. Fine by me. The installation was smooth. Permitted. Approved by the city. I even ran the system by a third-party contractor to ensure code compliance, just so Karen couldn't cry foul later. And for 6 months, it worked. Quietly. Efficiently. Every night, the streetlights came on. Uniform brightness. Clean draw from the inverter. No utility. No complaints. People noticed. They started walking later. Biking at dusk. Parents let kids stay out just a little longer. Safety came back 1 panel at a time. But I should have known. Progress always threatens those addicted to control. It was a Tuesday, regular day. I'd been out testing a battery prototype across town. Got home around 5:30. Pulled into the driveway, tired, hungry, ready to kick off my boots and check inverter data. And that's when I saw it. Gray, sloppy, dripping. The panels, my panels, were coated. Thick strokes of outdoor paint haphazardly spread over 6 of the 8 surface plates. The brush lines ran like war paint, like someone had tried to vandalize the sun. I froze, walked slowly to the roof edge where the panels angled south. It wasn't accidental. It wasn't a kid. It was deliberate, petty, intentional sabotage. And then I saw the envelope taped to my mailbox. Inside, folded like a flyer, was a note on pink stationery. The handwriting? Immaculate cursive. Just doing what your HOA wouldn't. Community comes before ego. Karen, no apology, no complaint. Just arrogance soaked in acrylic. I ran to the inverter panel. The readout was dead. The system had shut down due to panel occlusion, a failsafe to avoid backflow damage when solar input drops below threshold. Translation? No more output. No more storage. No more streetlights. I sent up the drone. Hovered at 40 feet up, just enough to see the power lines, the city tap, the streetlights along the boulevard. Normally, they'd start to glow around 6:45 as dusk set in. This time, nothing. By 7:10, the block was dark. Porches lit up, motion sensors and house lights kicked in. But the roads? Pitch black. One neighbor walked outside and looked at the pole. Then another. Soon the group chat was lighting up. Anyone else's street dead? Did we lose power again? Security camera didn't catch anything, just black. City outage, but it wasn't a city outage. It was Karen, and she just blacked out 3 city blocks because she didn't like the way solar looked. The thing about solar? It doesn't scream. It doesn't surge. It just works until you paint over the sun. And while everyone else was asking questions, I already had answers. I pulled the logs, the drawdown, the moment the panels shut off, the exact time they dipped below 9% output, 2:13 p.m., right in the middle of a cloudless day. The camera on my garage caught the timestamp. A shadow climbed the ladder. A bucket, a roller brush. And though the footage wasn't crystal clear, I'd know that silhouette anywhere. Karen, Weitblumhut, canvas gardening gloves, and no fear whatsoever, because in her mind, she was the authority. That night, I sat in the dark on my porch. Not because I had to, my house still had backup power, but because I wanted to feel what the neighborhood felt. Vulnerable, unseen, robbed of the basic safety that comes from visibility. And for what? Aesthetics? Control? Or was it something deeper? The fear that someone outside her influence could do more for this community than she ever would? Karen didn't just paint over panels. She tried to paint over progress. She tried to unplug the future because she couldn't understand it, or worse, because she could. But what she didn't know was that her little act of rebellion didn't just kill the lights. It lit the fuse. The lights stayed out for 3 nights straight. People complained, at first politely, then loudly, then angrily. By day 4, the HOA inbox was flooded, the community Facebook page was spiraling, and someone had even taped a handwritten note to the entrance sign. How much do we pay you to live in the dark? It didn't take long for fingers to point. And not at Karen, at me. The official HOA statement came in the form of an email, subject line, clarification regarding temporary lighting interruption. It read like a pre-written excuse wrapped in passive blame. We are currently investigating an incident involving the temporary failure of certain streetlight systems. While these lights were privately powered through a community member's voluntary system, we were not formally advised on any backup or contingency plans. Please be advised the HOA never mandated or contracted reliance on private energy systems for public infrastructure. Translation? Not our fault. Definitely not Karen's. Might be yours. They CC'd the entire neighborhood. Karen didn't sign it, but everyone knew where the words came from. She wasn't hiding. She was positioning. The next day, someone from the HOA came by with a clipboard and an unconvincing tone of neutrality. "We were told your panels went offline?" he asked. "They were sabotaged," I replied. "Painted over. On purpose." He tilted his head. "By who?" I didn't say her name. Instead, I opened the app on my phone, the one connected to the secondary camera she hadn't noticed. It was hidden under the eaves of my backyard tool shed, angled just enough to capture the ladder, the brush, and Karen's wide-brimmed gardening hat as she climbed and started her mural of gray spite. He squinted at the footage. That could be anyone. Really? I zoomed in. How many residents do you know that wear HOA name badges while committing vandalism? Silence. Then, I'll escalate this to the board. Escalate. That's the word they always use when they mean we're going to ignore it until it becomes a legal problem. So I made it one. I took the footage, downloaded, and backed it up. Filed a police report that afternoon. Titled it clearly, Criminal Mischief/Vandalism of Renewable Infrastructure. Evidence provided. The officer on duty blinked at the clarity of it. She really climbed up and just painted over them. Like it was her garage door, I said. And the power runs the streetlights. He raised a brow. Oh, I thought that would be the turning point. But the HOA still didn't act. No epalegi. No funding for repairs. No removal of Karen from the board. Instead, she doubled down, now openly claiming I had misled the community by unauthorized use of personal solar equipment for civic infrastructure. She went on a mini-campaign, wrote a community safety op-ed for the HOA newsletter, claimed my panels had no oversight, said, this outage, while unfortunate, proves the unreliability of third-party power setups. She even went so far as to suggest that my system might have caused a voltage hazard to the neighborhood's electrical grid, despite the entire thing being off-grid, battery-fed, and professionally certified. It wasn't just a smear. It was a chess move. She wanted the conversation off the vandalism and back on me. Insurance wouldn't cover the damage. Do you have conclusive proof the suspect acted with intent? They asked. I sent the footage. They sent back a paragraph of corporate disclaimers. Because I didn't catch her face full on, they called it insufficient for identity confirmation, unless charges were filed and proven in court. In the meantime, I was responsible for cleanup, panel replacement, and recalibration costs, nearly $4,200. My panels were out. The streets were dark. Karen was winning the PR war. And worse, the neighborhood was starting to believe her. Reports of minor thefts started rolling in. Someone's mailbox was pried open. A teen's bike was stolen. Trash bins overturned. A street that once felt safe, well-lit, watched, now felt like a blind alley. And in the community forum, it started bubbling. Can we get the lights back on? We never should have relied on a private system. Karen warned us this would happen. Maybe we should invest in real lighting now, through the HOA. They didn't even know it, but they were echoing her strategy perfectly. She wasn't just vandalizing panels. She was rewriting the narrative. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about solar. It wasn't about lights. It wasn't even about energy. It was about control. Karen wasn't threatened by technology. She was threatened by someone doing something she couldn't claim credit for. She wanted ownership. And if she couldn't have it, she'd rather turn the lights off for everyone. But what Karen forgot is, I don't play checkers. I play circuits. And every circuit leads somewhere. I wasn't going to outshout her. I was going to outsmart her. Quietly. Legally. Irrevocably. Because you can spin a narrative, but you can't fake voltage logs, sign grants, and regulatory filings. And while she stirred fear, I started gathering proof. Proof she'd soon wish had stayed in the dark. You can only let lies run the game for so long before you bring out the rulebook. And mine was 300 pages thick, written in code, regulation, and receipts. I didn't shout, didn't rant, didn't knock on Karen's door and demand a public apology. Instead, I opened my laptop and filed a formal complaint with the City Department of Utilities and Renewable Energy Grants. Because here's the thing Karen never bothered to learn before she picked up that paint roller. Those panels? They weren't just mine. They were partially funded through a neighborhood microgrid initiative underwritten by the state as part of a pilot program for clean civic lighting. My system had been registered, mapped, and certified to offset local energy costs under an active environmental partnership. In other words, tampering with it wasn't just vandalism. It was a violation of state-level environmental protections. And the moment that complaint was submitted, it triggered a compliance audit. I attached everything. Drone footage of the ladder and paint bucket. Secondary cam angle showing her halfway through the job. HOA meeting transcripts showing Karen's recorded objections to the solar project. Email printouts where she referred to it as unregulated power abuse. And I included one extra line buried in the summary. Tampering conducted by current HOA board member appears to have caused community lighting outage in violation of both city lighting codes and state clean energy protection statutes. That one sentence set fire to everything. The response came faster than expected. 4 days later, a letter landed in the HOA inbox. Hillridge Grove HOA is under preliminary review for interference with protected clean energy infrastructure. Failure to respond or resolve damages may result in a revocation of current or pending municipal sustainability grants. See, what Karen never knew, or cared to read, was that the HOA had been in line for a $15,000 green landscaping rebate for converting 2 empty lots into community garden spaces. Without it, the plan would stall. Without the lights, the site couldn't pass safety inspection. Suddenly, her paint job wasn't just a cosmetic protest. It was a budgetary landmine. Then I called Laura Chun, a reporter I knew from a local energy tech expo. She'd been working on a story about small-scale clean energy sabotage, homeowners who installed solar, only to have HOAs or neighbors retaliate. I sent her a short message. Hey Laura, you might want to check out Hillridge Grove. HOA board members sabotaged certified panels powering community lights. Footage, documents, and city complaints all available. Oh, and the whole neighborhood's still dark. She called me the next morning. We talked for 20 minutes. By the time we hung up, she had the whole playbook, and I had a not-so-subtle smile on my face. Next came the legal notice. I didn't sue yet, but I sent a letter of intent, signed and delivered, to the HOA's legal representative, the city registrar, and the Energy Grant Office. The Hillridge Grove HOA must take responsibility for all damages to the registered solar infrastructure on address, including repainting, recalibration, and performance losses during the outage period. Failure to do so will result in legal action and may cause the loss of green infrastructure eligibility for the HOA community as a whole. I copied the mayor's office, just for fun, because if Karen wanted this to be political, then let's talk politics. Let's talk optics. Let's talk why a neighborhood can't apply for green status because Karen hates solar panels. But the best part? I never told anyone what I was doing to the panels. That part stayed silent, because while the street remained dark, my house didn't. I quietly rewired the remaining 2 panels that had been untouched, redirected them to only service my home, not the inverter that fed the street circuit. It was a clean split, perfectly legal, totally within my rights. I installed new conduit lines, routed backup storage. By the time I was done, my lights burned brighter than ever. Porch lit, garage humming, garden LEDs twinkling like a runway. Meanwhile, the street remained pitch black. Every night, no guokwa lights, no ambient coverage, just an entire community slowly realizing, wait, why does this place still have lights? Karen sent a passive-aggressive email to the HOA listserv. Interesting to see one house glowing like Las Vegas while the rest of us stumble in the dark. Seems unfair, doesn't it? I didn't reply. Didn't need to. Because at this point, the residents were starting to ask questions of their own. Not about me. About her. And when the reporter published the article, title bold and brutal, Solar Sabotage. HOA board member shuts down clean energy project. Leaves streets in the dark. It was game over. Screenshots of the footage, quotes from a city complaint, my documentation laid bare, and Karen's name right there in black and white. Within 2 days, 3 residents filed formal complaints with the HOA. The garden grant was frozen pending investigation. The city placed the HOA on a 6-month clean compliance watch list. Karen was asked to temporarily step down from board responsibilities. She refused, so the board held a vote. And this time, they didn't just vote her out. They voted to protect solar energy infrastructure under future HOA regulation. The same people who once ignored me were now defending me. Not because they liked me, but because they finally saw the light. Literally, Karen still lives on the street. Her porch? Dark. Always dark. Her spotlight shorted out 2 weeks ago. Squirrels chewed through the wire. She left a note asking for help from the local electrical expert. I read it, laughed, tossed it in the recycling bin. Because the thing about power, it's not about how loud you are. It's about how quietly you use it to make people see. And Karen? She saw it now. Every time she walked past my house. Every time she tripped over her own walkway. Every time she looked up and realized the stars weren't the only things still shining. The emergency HOA meeting was scheduled for Thursday night. It wasn't optional. Too many complaints. Too much press. Too many residents wondering why the streets were still dark while one house, mine, glowed like a quiet protest. The clubhouse filled fast. People brought lawn chairs, strollers, flashlights. One guy even parked his truck with the high beams pointed at the entrance just to light the path. Karen was already there, seated near the front in a pastel blazer like it was brunch, not Judgment Day. She sipped from a branded Hill Ridge Grove HOA coffee tumbler, posture tight, lips tighter. The remaining board members looked like they hadn't slept. I walked in with one folder, one USB drive, and one small envelope sealed. Didn't say a word, just nodded once. Game time. The board president, a man named Ted who always looked like a substitute teacher trapped in the wrong job, opened with the usual. We're here to address the growing concerns over the community lighting outage, recent media coverage, and allegations involving board conduct. But he didn't get far. Hands shot up. Residents stood. One woman shouted, "Why are my kids walking home in the dark?" Another, "Why is our HOA being investigated by the city?" A third voice, "Is it true we lost the grant because someone vandalized the solar panels?" That one shut the room down. All eyes turned to Karen. She didn't move, didn't blink, but her grip on that coffee cup tightened, white knuckles peeking through French manicured fingers. I stood, clear my throat once. Ted stepped aside like he was glad someone else was taking the wheel. I walked to the projector screen, plugged in the USB, clicked the first file, and hit play. Footage rolled. Karen climbing the ladder. Karen holding the roller brush. Karen coating the panels with thick gray paint. Her face turning to the side, clear as daylight. Murmurs broke out. Someone gasped. Someone whispered, "Is that her?" I turned to the room. This footage was taken on a secondary security camera on my property. What you're seeing is a deliberate act of sabotage, not just against me, but against the system powering your streetlights. A system that was approved, permitted, and partially funded through a city environmental initiative. I paused, slid a printed document onto the table for the board. This is the grant contract. The solar infrastructure was certified under my name, which means the system and its damage falls entirely under my responsibility, not the HOA's. That's the only reason you had light for 6 months. I clicked to the next slide. An email thread between Karen and the HOA board. Subject line, Solar panel fines and aesthetic violation policy draft. The thread showed Karen pushing to rewrite HOA policy to fine any homeowner with non-conforming rooftop equipment and remove what she called unsightly alternative energy units. She wrote, "Even if we can't get rid of them directly, we can apply visual standards and hit him with enough fees to force a redesign or shut off." The room went silent. I let it breathe. Then I said flatly, "That was sent 3 weeks before the panels were vandalized." Karen stood. Slowly. "Those emails were exploratory," she said through a tight smile. "Part of a discussion about community image. Nothing illegal. And I didn't damage anything. That video isn't conclusive. Could be edited." I slid another file across the table. A certified timestamp from the drone footage, GPS tagged. Then the city inspector's report confirming paint contamination and panel failure due to manual obstruction. Then, the final blow, a statement from the City Green Infrastructure Program Office, which I read aloud. After formal investigation, it has been determined that Hill Ridge Grove HOA violated the terms of the active municipal grant by allowing and enabling the sabotage of a registered energy system. The HOA's green status is hereby revoked. All pending rebate funds are frozen. Future applications are restricted pending disciplinary review. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't even look at Karen. But the room exploded. People stood. Some clapped. One woman shouted, "How dare you cost us that funding?" Another, "You're the reason we can't get the gardens done." A man near the back, "You lied to us." You blamed him. Karen tried to speak. The words didn't come. The board president held up a hand. Then, voice shaking but resolute, he said, "Per HOA bylaws, we're initiating an emergency vote for removal from board duties pending investigation." No hesitation. Hands went up like it was reflex. Nearly unanimous. Karen just stood there, blinking like she had finally lost the plot. When the vote was tallied, Ted turned to me. "You have anything else you'd like to say?" I nodded. Just once. The streetlight system was always a donation. I never asked for compensation. I never signed exclusivity. But after what happened and how it was handled, I rewired the system last week. It now powers only my home. More gasps. Karen's eyes widened. But I continued. I'd be happy to reestablish shared access. On one condition. This board updates its charter to protect solar and clean energy rights for all residents. No more aesthetic sabotage. No more politics over power. You want the lights back? You vote to protect the future. The room fell quiet. Then someone shouted, "Seconded." And the applause was louder than anything that had happened in that clubhouse since it was built. Karen left through the side door. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't come back. And by the end of the month, her house was listed. Some said she moved 2 towns over. Others said she was resting. But what she left behind wasn't silence. It was light. A neighborhood that finally understood what it meant to protect what mattered. Not just the look of the place, but the soul of it. They called a special vote 2 weeks later. This time, there was no tension, no hushed corner chatter. Just neighbors, tired of the dark, tired of the drama, ready to choose something better. The motion was clear. Add permanent solar energy protections to the HOA bylaws. No cosmetic bans. No aesthetic restrictions. No unauthorized interference. Full homeowner rights to generate and share power. The proposal passed with over 90% support. Even the skeptics, the ones who once grumbled about ugly panels or tech headaches, voted yes. Because they'd seen what the alternative looked like. They'd walked those pitch-black sidewalks. Missed those safe walks home. Lost funding and trust because someone decided appearance mattered more than infrastructure. Now they understood. It wasn't about looks. It was about light. The very next day, I flipped the switch. The streetlights came back on, one by one, like old friends returning from exile. People stood on their porches and clapped. Kids rode their scooters past curbs that finally felt visible again. Someone sent a thank you pie. Another dropped off a card sign by half the block. I didn't need the gratitude, but I'll admit I kept the card. Sometimes, it's good to have a reminder that silence and solar panels can change a neighborhood more than yelling ever could. Karen? She disappeared from meetings entirely. Her name was eventually struck from board rosters. A for sale sign showed up on her lawn a month later and vanished 2 weeks after that. No goodbye note. No finger pointing. Just a blank slate where her beautification crusade used to be. Funny thing about control. When it's gone, it doesn't echo. It just vanishes. With the board restructured, the neighborhood formed its first green energy committee. I was asked to lead it, not because I fought the hardest, but because I built the thing they almost destroyed. We started small, helping 3 families navigate permits for rooftop solar, then a few more. By spring, 6 houses had partial solar infrastructure, with more on the way. We organized rebates, mapped out share battery banks, even partnered with a nearby school for a student-led project on neighborhood sustainability. And at the center of it all, my panels, the same ones Karen tried to erase. Now protected, now praised, now duplicated in rooftop sketches taped to HOA newsletters titled, "Let's Light the Future." Sometimes I walk the street at night just to look, not at my house, at all of them, all glowing, all lit, all proof that sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's reliable and renewable. She thought she could paint over progress, that a few brushstrokes, sloppy, rushed, born out of ego, could undo years of wiring, calculation, and quiet commitment. To her, the panels were an eyesore. To the rest of us, they were a lifeline, a promise, a way forward. But when you tamper with someone's vision, when you try to silence it, cover it up, bury it under your own need to control, you rarely just hurt them. You cut off the current to everyone else, too. You pull the plug on safety, community, and shared purpose. Karen didn't just sabotage a rooftop. She blacked out the whole street. And in doing so, she exposed the truth about herself. That she didn't care about beauty. She cared about power, the kind that dims others to feel brighter. But here's the thing about light. It always finds its way back, especially when it's built on discipline, not dominance. So if you're wondering how this story ends, it doesn't end in a courtroom. It ends with porch lights, shared circuits, and the soft glow of quiet revenge. Sometimes karma isn't loud. Sometimes it's just solar-powered.